The crystal champagne flute shattered against the Italian marble floor, but the sound was swallowed by the sudden, suffocating silence of the ballroom. 1 second, I was the guest of honor, 3 months pregnant and glowing in the arms of my husband. The next, a man I had never seen in my life was pointing a trembling finger at my stomach, his voice cutting through the jazz music like a serrated blade. "That baby isn't yours, David. It's mine." My mother-in-law's face didn't show shock. It showed a predatory, venomous satisfaction. In that heartbeat, I realized this wasn't an interruption. It was an execution. My marriage, my reputation, and my life were being slaughtered in front of the most powerful people in the city. But they forgot one thing. When you push a woman with nothing to lose, she doesn't just break. She burns everything down. My name is Julia Hayes. For the last year, I've lived a life that felt like a borrowed coat, expensive, beautiful, but never quite fitting. I grew up in a house where the floorboards creaked and dinner was a luxury, not a given. My parents were honest people who traded their health for my education. When David Hayes, the heir to the Hayes construction empire, chose me, it felt like a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't tell you about the wolves in silk dresses. The Hayes family didn't see a daughter-in-law when they looked at me. They saw a stain on their golden lineage. To David's mother, Eleanor, I was a social climber. To his father, Arthur, I was a liability. They spent 12 months practicing the art of the polite insult, reminding me at every dinner that I didn't belong. I changed my hair, my walk, and my vocabulary. I tried to become the trophy they wanted, just to keep the peace for David. "Don't worry, Jules," David would whisper at night. "I chose you, not their expectations." I believed him. Until the night of our first anniversary. The gala was a sea of black ties and diamond necklaces. David had spared no expense. The scent of 5,000 white orchids filled the air. I felt the tiny flutter in my womb, our secret, or so I thought. We were moments away from announcing the pregnancy to the family when the heavy oak doors swung open. The stranger was disheveled, looking deliberately like a man tormented by guilt. He marched into the center of the circle. The medical files he threw onto the table weren't just papers, they were the nails in my coffin. Blood types, dates, forged ultrasound photos where he sat in the partner chair. We had an affair while David was in London. The man lied, his voice practiced and shaky. "I couldn't let you raise my son in a lie." The reaction was instantaneous. Eleanor Hayes didn't ask for a private conversation. She didn't look for the truth. She lunged. The slap was so hard my vision blurred. "You disgusting, low-class gutter rat," she hissed, her voice loud enough for the servers to hear. "You brought your filth into our home? Arthur, call the lawyers. I want her out of this house, out of this city, and I want that thing in her womb erased from our history." The guests whispered. I knew she was a gold digger. "You can't take the poverty out of the girl." I looked at David. He was standing perfectly still, staring at the man who claimed to be my lover. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Please, David. Please." Then, the world shifted. David didn't look at the papers. He didn't look at his mother. He walked toward the stranger. The man started to smirk, thinking David was coming to shake his hand in a civilized divorce agreement. David grabbed him by the throat. The sound of David's fist connecting with the man's jaw was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. The man went down, blood spraying across the white tablecloth. "David, stop!" Arthur yelled. "You're embarrassing the family." David turned to his father, his eyes glowing with a cold, terrifying fire I had never seen. "The family? You think I give a damn about the family? This man is a liar. And if any of you speak another word against my wife, you'll be joining him on the floor." "David, look at the evidence." Eleanor screamed, clutching her pearls. "She's a fraud." "The only frauds in this room," David said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper, "are the people who think they can buy my wife's dignity. Julia, we're leaving." He grabbed my hand. He didn't ask for my side. He didn't need to. He led me through the crowd of judgmental stares, out of the mansion, and into the cold night rain. We left behind the wealth, the cars, and the security. We left with nothing but the clothes on our backs and the truth. We moved into a cramped, one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city David's parents wouldn't even drive through. His accounts were frozen within 48 hours. Arthur Hayes was a man of his word. If David chose me, he was dead to the empire. For 3 days, David didn't sleep. He sat at a small kitchen table with a laptop and a burner phone. He wasn't mourning his lost inheritance. He was hunting. I know my wife, he told me when I tried to apologize through my tears. You're too honest for your own good, Jules.
That man was a professional. Professional liars cost money.
And there are only two people in this world with the motive and the bank account to hire him. He used his old connections, people who owed him favors from the construction days. He tracked the stranger to a dive bar on the edge of the docks. He didn't go with a lawyer. He went with a recording device and a pair of brass knuckles.
The man's name was Marcus. He was a struggling actor with a gambling debt.
David found him in a back alley behind the bar. He didn't have to use the knuckles. The look in David's eyes was enough. Who paid you? David asked, pinning him against a brick wall. I don't know. It was an intermediary.
Marcus sobbed.
Wrong answer, David growled. I've lost $80 million in inheritance this week. I have nothing left to lose by burying you under this pavement.
Who paid you? Marcus broke. He pulled out his phone. He showed David the encrypted messages, the instructions on how to frame the timeline, the photoshopped images of me, and then, the final piece of evidence, the digital receipt for the $50,000 performance fee. The wire transfer had originated from a shell company, but the shell company was owned by a trust managed by Eleanor Hayes. A week later, we returned to the Hayes mansion. They were having a lunch meeting with their legal team, likely discussing how to finalize David's disinheritance. They looked up, annoyed, as we walked into the dining room. David, I told you, Arthur said, not looking up from his steak.
Unless you have divorce papers, you are not welcome here. I don't have divorce papers, Dad, David said, pulling out a chair for me. But I do have something for the board of directors. And for the press.
He placed a tablet on the table and hit play. The room filled with Marcus's voice. Eleanor Hayes hired me. She told me to say the baby was mine. She gave me the medical records to forge.
She said she'd double the pay if I made sure. Julia cried.
Eleanor's fork clattered against her plate. Her face went from pale to ghostly white. It's a fake, she shrieked. He's a liar.
David, he's a criminal. You should know, Mother, David said, his voice cold and clinical.
You're the one who signed the contract. We have the wire transfer logs.
We have the intermediary's testimony. And we have the original, unedited photos you tried to use to ruin my wife. Arthur looked at his wife, a slow, dawning horror filling his eyes. Eleanor, what did you do? I did it for us, she erupted, the mask finally slipping. She's a nobody.
Her child would have the blood of peasants.
I wasn't going to let her inherit what we spent generations building. David stood up. He didn't look angry anymore.
He looked finished.
Generations? David asked. You think wealth is what makes a family?
You tried to destroy an innocent woman and your own grandchild.
You didn't just fail, Mother. You ended the Hayes name. What do you mean?
Arthur asked, his voice shaking.
I've already sent the recording and the transfer logs to the DA, David said.
And to the Seattle Times.
By tomorrow morning, Hayes Construction will be synonymous with conspiracy and elder fraud.
The stock will plummet.
The board will fire you both by noon.
You wouldn't, Arthur whispered.
You'll destroy your own future. My future is sitting right here, David said, placing his hand on my shoulder. And she's worth more than every brick in this house.
We walked out for the last time.
As we reached the car, we could hear Eleanor's screams echoing from the dining room, a high, piercing sound of a woman realizing her throne was made of sand.
The aftermath was a whirlwind. The scandal broke the next day.
The Hayes family became social pariahs. Arthur was forced into a humiliating retirement, and Eleanor faced a series of civil lawsuits that drained their personal accounts.
They kept the mansion, but they lost their power. No one would take their calls. No one would attend their parties.
They were trapped in a gilded cage of their own making.
David and I stayed in our small apartment.
He started his own firm, small, honest, and built on his own sweat.
It wasn't easy.
There were nights we ate ramen and worried about the rent. But for the first time, the air was clear. 6 months later, our daughter was born. We named her Grace, after the quality my in-laws never possessed. When I hold her, I don't think about the diamonds I could have had or the mansion I lost. I think about the moment the man I loved chose the truth over a kingdom. I think about the look on Eleanor's face when she realized she couldn't buy her way out of a conscience. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Julia and David lost a fortune, but they saved their souls. The Hayes Empire fell, not because of a bad market, but because of a bad heart. If you believe that respect is earned, not demanded, and you loved seeing the tables finally turn on those elitist in-laws, then you belong here. Smash that like button right now to stand with Julia and David, and hit subscribe to join our community of truth seekers. We don't just tell stories here, we celebrate the courage to say enough. Don't let the next secret stay buried. Tap the bell icon and I'll see you in the next one. Tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven the parents, or was cutting them off the only way?
Let's talk.